Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. So I already did this once before, and it was a long voiceover and a clean one. I'd made very few mistakes, very little editing needed, and I forgot to turn the app on. My wife and I have since gone for a walk. I probably did about a half hour of content, and this content's a little bit harder. But Trump has dropped at least 4 triggered messages. And some of them have been put up on the internet, on YouTube. I'm not sure where he's doing these, on Truth Social or what. But he is clearly triggered. He's doing the Fishboi. He's doing the Fishboi throughout.
Easy indictments against me should be viewed as campaign contributions to
Go boom. Fishboi.
crooked Joe Biden and
Fishboi.
his radical left
Fishboi.
thugs. This will be their updated form of cheating and election interference. Remember,
Once you start looking at it, it's hard to do anything else.
these are Biden
Like there's just,
indictments. They're not pure and
see, it's just every time.
simple. They're not coming down from heaven. These are indictments made up by Joe Biden and the people that surround him, mostly the people that surround him. He's got a bad group. They're thugs.
See, the thugs. He's got thugs over there. Trump has no thugs. Cohen wasn't a thug. Guy from Breitbart wasn't a thug. His thugs aren't thugs.
They're radical left fascists. They're Marxists. They're communists. They have the worst people. But these people made these indictments. So when they say, oh, Donald Trump is going
Well, this is great. Really Fishbois it here. Watch this part. Like it's almost like claymation. He Fishbois. I got more, we're going to get off the Fishboi thing. I mean, it's going to be throughout. Like, we're not leaving it completely. Watch this part here.
people. But these people made these indictments. So when they say, oh, Donald Trump is going to court, no. We're going to court to
Let's do that again. I messed it up. Here we go.
But these people made these indictments. So when they say, oh, Donald Trump is going to court, no.
It's like claymation. It's like his lips aren't real.
We're going to court to fight a crooked system, a corrupt system. And Democrats better be careful what they wish for, because this kind of thing can happen to them.
So this is a threat. Like he's basically saying here, when he's elected president, he's going to do the same thing to them. But Trump is limp, boop, ain't it, right? Like he doesn't, he had a chance to do something like this before. And so let's go down memory lane here. Here they are, right? Here's this guy. He's got what's happening there? Like, how does your neck get that big? And there's his wife. So, like, that's already disturbing. This guy here, these people in the background. Now, here's this dude. And look at, this was the second debate.
Can fact check him in real time. Last time at the first debate, we had millions of people fact checking, so I expect we'll have millions more fact checking because
There's a lot of fact checkers out there.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
Kaboom. Like he delivered there. That was Donald Trump's finest moment in the debates. Like he had it. That was a huge one-liner. And if he was in charge of the criminal justice system, she'd be in jail, right? And if you remember the 2015-16 campaign, everywhere Trump went, they were yelling, lock her up. And Trump talked about her criminal activity throughout the campaign. So he's either lying about her being a criminal after he was elected president, before he was elected president, he was lying about her being a criminal, or he didn't care about it because, he didn't care about justice because that's all he talked about. Crooked Hillary. That's his name for her. But he didn't go after her one bit. In fact, he said this.
Donald Trump is seemingly already going back on one of his campaign promises. You'll remember he promised to appoint a special prosecutor to investigate Hillary Clinton for using a private email server that happened during one of the debates. Well, listen to what he said at one of these thank you rallies.
This is the gumball guy, and I'll get into him in a moment. We have to go down memory lane with the gumball guy. It just has to be done. But let's get to this first.
Last night.
That plays great before the election. Nah, we don't care.
Yeah, if you couldn't really decipher that, there were chants of lock her up from the audience, and he said, "Now we don't care." That was before the election. But he is now talking about.
Okay, so think about that, right? Because that was a huge thing that happened. And we know it happened because Trump didn't go after Hillary one bit. His whole campaign, he talked about her criminal behavior. You were there. He's promised a special prosecutor. He said what he's going to do. And none of that happened. She left her office. She left whatever, she lost. And she went to do whatever Hillary Clinton does. And none of it's probably worth even thinking about. And he didn't bother her again. Didn't talk about her, didn't do anything. It was over. No, now, either he was lying to his supporters saying that she was a criminal when she wasn't, and that's effed up, or he was telling the truth that he didn't care that she was a criminal and he let her go, or there's some sort of deal made. In any case, Trump's a piece of boop. Like, that shows you he's a piece of boop. But let's go back to the gumball guy before we get back to Trump here.
Have you ever played this party game, guessing the number of gumballs in a jar? It's played at office parties, kids' birthdays. You guess the correct number, you win a prize, usually the gumballs.
And that's a good prize because I, for one, like gumballs.
Now, if you watch our show regularly, then you know where this is going. If not, let me catch you up. So almost 2 years ago, I started highlighting the Washington Post's count of President Trump's false and misleading claims made while in office. And as he rounded out his first calendar year, 2017, the fact checkers at the Post counted 1,950 false or misleading claims in his first 347 days as president.
That's a lot of lies. How are we going to show those lies in some kind of way that we can see them for what they are? That's a big number. How can we conceptualize that number?
1,950. Now, that was a striking number, but
it is a striking number.
That can be hard to grasp.
It is hard to grasp. How can you help us grasp it, gumball guy?
I wanted to make sure it resonated. So I searched for a way to make something conceptual, like a false statement, visual. And I remembered the jar of gumballs, except this time, there's no guessing game involved. In these four, 1,950, I know because I put them there. I
was wondering if they have like a gumball counter, a machine that counts gumballs. Did he count them? Do you have a staff member? There's a gumball person over there in charge of counting gumballs.
Just wanted you to know what that looks like. Again, that was near the end of the president's first year. So what does the count of his bunk claims look like now? Well, according to the Washington Post fact checker blog,
boom! Look at all those gumballs.
President Trump has now made 15,413 false or misleading claims, and that's in fewer than 1,100 days in office. 15,413. We're now up to 28 jars.
Just keep on getting jars.
Now, the first year, the president was averaging.
At some point, I don't know if it's there might have been one after this, but at some point they said they had a closet of gumballs, right? And people are sneaking in there and getting the gumballs. Like CNN has all these gumballs stored on these racks somewhere. They had like a closet full of them. And I don't know this guy's name, but he's by far my favorite CNN reporter because of this lone association with gumballs. Because I, for one, have a positive association with gumballs. Most people who grew up in my generation did. Because back then, the supermarkets, when you left the supermarkets, they had these machines, gumball machines. And if you had money, your parents give you some change, you would get a gumball. And it was kind of like a reward for going through the grocery store with your parents, which sucked. But, getting a gumball or riding one of those stupid horses or whatever. They had these things for kids, impulse items, right? And, I really have a positive association with gumballs. A couple of years ago, we were traveling, I think it was when we went to India. Even before that, I found these gumballs that were like organic, and they're really good. But, there's sugar and whatever. But when I look at gumballs, I think, hey, I want a gumball. That's what I thought every day of my life when I walked through, not every day, but every time I walked through a store and I saw a gumball machine. There was this commercial we had when we were kids.
Here's a penny, Mickey. Thanks for the gumball. Penny for a gumball, Freddy. Thanks for the gumball. Penny for a gumball, Popeye. Thanks for the gumball.
Gumball Bank. With new sugarless gumballs, you can get refills that fill up Mickey Mouse, Popeye, Fred Flintstone.
So I think I had this. Either I had it or one of my friends had it. But what usually would happen is you bought it and parents bought it for you. You put in all the gumballs and then you ate all the gumballs and then it just laid there empty in your house with some residue of sugar and then insects would get. But, my generation, I think the next, few generations, we had this association with gumballs. So Gumball, the guy, wants you to think about these gumballs as Trump's lie. But you like gumballs. People want gumballs, right? I think pretty much everyone has a positive association with gumballs. If gumballs have a high positivity ratio. And so, it's a fail. But I associate him with gumball, so he's my favorite CNN guy. But Trump, he had his opportunity to put Hillary in jail, and he didn't. So now he has this threat. He says this thing here, but it's just, nobody believes him because he makes threats like this, but he doesn't follow through.
We're going to court to fight a crooked system, a corrupt system, and Democrats better be careful what they wish for, because this kind of thing can happen to them, and it can happen very quickly. Thank you very much. Please realize that all of these indictments and lawsuits against me are conceived and run by radical left Democrats, the same lunatics that are destroying our country.
Again, the Fishboi stuff.
The indictments and litigation are highly partisan election interference.
It's just so weird. I never noticed it before. Once I noticed it, I can't stop seeing it.
Now we're in a partially corrupt system of justice. We call it a system of justice.
We call it a system of justice. It's really
a system of injustice.
I knew that was coming because I already watched this once and did it. That's typical Trump. We call it a system of justice. It's really a system of injustice.
Filled up with Marxists, fascists, communists, and radical left Democrats, but also...
Oh, man, there was a big one there. I've already gone through this. I already did this before. Kaboom! Like he looks like one of those kissing fish with his hair. Like that's Fishboi. He's undeniably Fishboi. Look at that M&F-er right there. He just went for it like big ass Fishboi. It's just claymation.
I want to thank you very much to the people of Atlanta, Georgia. I love Atlanta.
He loves Atlanta.
Georgia. We did great in Georgia, much better than people understand, for coming out and showering us with support. We're going through some tough times as a country right now. Our country's going bad. We're a failing nation, but the love was incredible because they want to bring our country back.
Want to bring her back.
Whether it's African American, Hispanic American, Asian American, men, women, highly educated people, people without a diploma. They want to bring our country back like we have.
He's got such a big demographic of followers.
In particular, I want to thank the communities of Washington Park, Vine City, and Bankhead. The people understand that this is a political persecution. It's a travesty of justice, but we are not going to let them stop us. We're not going to let them at all.
Okay, so that's another thing. We're not going to let them stop us. You already did. You were president. And you rolled out Operation Warp Speed, and I guess there's another new one I haven't seen yet. I didn't get to that one. Like that one came up just as I realized I didn't have the app on. I'll show you that in a second. But, there's this idea that he had the opportunity to stop all these things. They changed the definition of gender. I mean, that whole thing happened. All that liberal stuff they rolled out. He couldn't stop the Antifa stuff. He couldn't stop the BLM riots. And then he, rolled out Operation Warp Speed. He failed on that. He closed down the economy, did the lockdowns. And, now he's changed his position because it's politically, advantageous. But he didn't fight for us in the system at all. He just caved. He let them totally work him on COVID. And then the post-election, they worked him even worse. And they worked him so hard, embarrassed him. And then all the stuff that happened in January, 2020, the big day and all that stuff that happened afterwards, the deplatforming, the censorship. He got so worked, he didn't stop it. In fact, there's that famous quote, I've showed you that before, where he said, what kind of way is this to run the country? Right? If somebody cheated in the election, which the Democrats did, why wouldn't the election be immediately overturned? How can a country be run like this? Like he was the sitting president, and that was what he was saying. Like completely limped, boop, just denutted, right? The guy had nothing. He couldn't stop it. And he's not going to stop it now. A second termer, with all the, the multiple indictments, all these things.
American deserves to know that they are the heirs to an incredible history.
He's really going Fishboi hide here.
Given to us by a legion of true American heroes. Individuals like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Betsy Ross.
Okay, this total Fishboi thing. Now, George Washington was a Freemason. And again, half a third of the founding fathers were. George Washington's wife looks a lot like a dude. Look up Martha Washington and judge for yourself. Portraits of her. And I'm sure the portraits were flattering. But Thomas Jefferson's a little bit worse. Now, he's considered one of the greatest political minds. And, all the stuff he did with the integral to the, the Constitution, all these other documents. But he was R-ing his 15-year-old slave girl, Sally Hemings, who they were in a non-consensual relationship because she was a slave girl, and she bore him 3 children. He was cheating on his wife and abusing this, this slave girl. And the children they had together, Thomas Jefferson's children with Sally Hemings, were Thomas Jefferson's property. They were his slaves. And so think about that. Like, imagine if you had children out of wedlock and those children were your slaves. And so you can say, well, it was the time, this, that, and the other thing, but he certainly wasn't a hero. Whatever you want to say about him, that's not being heroic. And again, most of these historical figures were not good people. They just are remembered as such, right? Every country has their heroes, but doesn't mean these guys were even good people. Never mind heroic.
Frederick Douglass, Abraham Lincoln, Harriet Tubman, Susan B. Anthony, Teddy Roosevelt, Generals George Patton, Douglas MacArthur. We could use them now.
We could use those generals.
And countless other legends, patriots, and giants of American history. Yet we're also a people whose heroes lived not only in the past.
Is there any hero that we can think about right now?
But all around us today.
He went big time there.
But all.
He went big there. He went big time Fishboi there again. When he says the word all, that's when he gets it.
But all around us today, including the men and women of the United States military, our law enforcement, and our first responders, who are all willing to lay down.
See, he did there again with all. Watch.
Who are all willing to lay
He
down
says all,
their
he goes
lives
full
so that we
Fishboi.
can have safety, peace, freedom, and life. The stories of our great American heroes remind us what our country is all about and how each one is capable of achieving this great, great thing that we all want to do. We want to have an incredible, successful life. We want to be also great patriots and strength for our nation.
Most people are selfish, entitled, boops, even if they call themselves patriots. People are self-involved. Like just Trump's imaginary world, like he's a narcissistic flim-flam man who, doesn't care about justice because either Hillary's a criminal or she's not. And it's unjust for him to accuse her of being a criminal in a campaign to get elected and not go after her. That's not justice. Either she's a criminal and should be prosecuted or you lied about her. And either way, that's unfair. And, it just shows you what kind of person he is.
The left-wing lunatics are trying very hard to bring back COVID.
Well, he went in big here. What's this one?
Are trying very, very hard.
Right there. Just a tad.
Very hard.
Boom. Wow, he's taking a big gulp of Fishboi water. I mean, come on. Like, he's undeniable.
To bring back COVID lockdowns and mandates with all of their sudden fear-mongering about the new variants that are coming. Gee whiz, you know what else is coming? An election. They want to restart the COVID.
Yeah, but you got work last time. Admit you got work. That if you didn't shut down the country the way they were demanding, and you didn't stand, if you stood up to them like you should have, you would still be president. You got worked by that. They wouldn't have been able to hire Jojo Magoo. They wouldn't have been able to roll out the economy, the failed economy, because they conned you into locking it down, which you didn't want to do, but you did it anyway, and then rolling out Operation Warp Speed, all of those things. Disaster. You're a disaster. You got played. You got worked. They made a fool of you. They used you. Now you're finally coming around to it when you're running for re-election. You failed us. Failed yourself. Embarrassing.
But hysteria so they can justify more lockdowns, more censorship, more illegal drop boxes, more mail-in ballots, and trillions of dollars in payoffs to their political allies heading into the 2024 election. Does that sound?
See, he's concerned about the election being fair. And he's saying that the mail-in ballot screwed him the last time. But there are bigger problems with the lockdowns and all of it, and also the Operation Warp Speed stuff. So, you can't come around and pretend you didn't get worked. They owned you. Like, they played you so bad. It was embarrassing. Like, they got you.
Sound familiar? These are bad people. These are sick people we're dealing with. But to every COVID tyrant who wants to take away our freedom, hear these words: we will not comply. So don't even think about it. We will not shut down our schools. We will not accept your lockdown.
Well, you should have said this stuff 2 years ago.
We will not abide by your mask mandates, and we will not tolerate your vaccine mandates. They rigged the
Wait, what? You're the one in Operation Warp Speed.
2020 election, and now they're trying to do the same thing all over again.
Which you helped them do. You handed it on a silver platter to them.
By rigging the most important election in the history of our country, the 2024 election, even if it means trying to bring back COVID. But they will fail because we will not let it happen. When I'm back in the White House, I will use every available authority to cut federal funding to any school, college, airline, or public transportation system that imposes a mask mandate or a vaccine mandate. Thank you very much.
Okay, but where were you? Where were you, Rum? Where were you when you got owned by this in 2020? You got completely owned and worked. And now you're saying these things because they're popular. But we know your actions speak louder than words. You got played, and you went along with it. And you tried to tell everybody how great these things were. There's 2 more videos that Trump put up here. A third one I'm not going to get to. Like, he's losing it, right? I don't want to get into it because he just sucks. Like, if you don't see it by now, but whatever. Here he is.
Is there anyone on the planet that doesn't know what I look like? I wish there were some people like that. That'd be very nice for me. And yet, for some reason, the communist Democrats in Atlanta made a mugshot of me. That's a mugshot. Because I said the election was rigged. And I believe it more strongly than ever. It was a rigged election. We all know why, and we know what they're doing, and we certainly get it. But I know I'm your favorite president, and they make me look like a criminal, but it completely and totally backfired, as you probably read. Since my mugshot was released, our campaign has raised over $10 million. The people get it. The people know.
The people get it. No, some of the people get it. And not enough of them. That's the point. We'll get back to that.
This is a sham and a scam. This is nothing but election interference. They want to interfere with our election so they can try and damage me with all these bullshit
What? Well, what?
lawsuits that you see flying
Boom. Look at the guy.
all over the place. But it's election interference. It's orchestrated by crooked Joe Biden, the worst president in the history of our country, along with the deep state. And on November 5th, 2024, it's going to backfire again when we win back the White House and make America great again. I just want to thank you for your tremendous support. And here it is. If you want to go out and get it, you can go out and get it. Have fun with it.
Okay, so they blocked it out here, stupid fucking Forbes. So there was that, and then there was this one.
What's happening to our auto workers is an absolute disgrace and an outrage beyond belief. Auto workers are getting
Total Fishboi, just can't stop
ripped
doing it.
off by crooked Joe Biden and also their horrendous leadership, because these people are allowing our country to do these electric vehicles that very few people want. And it's a mandate. So you'll ultimately be forced to drive in a car that goes for an hour and then you have to have it recharged. I hope you don't want to go very far away. Biden has imposed the outlandish requirement that 67% of all new vehicles must be electric in less than 10 years. That means Michigan and places that make cars, you can forget about it. You better get your union
Forget about it there.
working, because you can forget about it. Those cars are
You
all
can
going to
forget
be
about
made
it.
in China. According to the UAW president himself, one auto company CEO used the word brutality over 40 times in a single conversation to describe Joe Biden. I call him Crooked Joe because he's the most corrupt president in history. He's also the most incompetent. But Joe Biden.
So that saying that he's the most corrupt and most incompetent is something they've tried to do to Trump as well. You can't be incompetent and corrupt, right? You can't be incompetent and corrupt. You can't be stupid and a criminal mastermind. And they've tried to do this with both Biden and Trump, as paint them as inept, stupid and old and senile, at the same time saying that they're criminal masterminds, geniuses. And you can't be both, right? You have to be one or the other. You can't be both. You can't be like stupid and great, you can't be stupid and smart. You have to be like either one or the other. Because if you're inept and you're a crook and you're getting away with it, then you're not inept. And Jojo Magoo's people are getting away with it. It's not Joe. He's using Joe here because that's what he's got to do, but he should just be saying all the time the guy's basically a meat puppet out there, and he's just being run by all these handlers. But then Trump would have to talk about his own handlers and his own situation that he's in.
Biden's cruel and foolish electric vehicle mandate. That's how bad this policy is. Your union heads know it, but the union bosses don't want to do anything about it because they're not leaders. But you know who's voting for me? The people in the union. Yeah, the union heads and the Crooked Joe keep using the phrase fair transition. There's no fair transition. First of all,
there's no fair transition.
People don't want the electric car. And the ones that want it should get it. But we want to have all forms of transportation and all forms of motorization.
It's just, at some point I think he calls them evil. So this is what he says.
Dollars that should be going to the workers and makes new cars entirely unaffordable for the middle class. That's a transition to hell. You're going to hell. And your bosses are leading you right down the tubes. You shouldn't pay your fees. They get these big fees from all of their workers.
You shouldn't pay your fees. You're going to hell. He's Joe Biden sucks. And for Republicans and some people, that's enough to vote for Trump. But for lots of people, it isn't. They don't see a distinction here. And Trump should just go away. I'll come back to this in my voiceover. So in a video that I'm waiting to get approved on my other channel, I get into this guy and his big pharma ties and his big business ties and his pump and dump schemes. And, the information's been out on this guy for a while. And I got two things to show you here. And he just sucks. And he's Trump's favorite, guy right now because he's praising Trump left and right as the greatest president in a generation or whatever. And so Trump wants to give this guy a position. So if Trump wins, you're going to get this guy because this guy is, on Trump's good list. And as long as he doesn't attack Trump, he'll stay on Trump's good list. And so this guy is much worse than we originally thought. But here it says God is real. There are two genders. Human pluralism, I guess it says.
Hi, My name is Anna Hawkins. I'm from Manly, and I've been in Iowa for 6 years. I know that you don't have any power over Congress, but there is a crisis going on with our lobbyist system and our corporations, kind of scratching Congress's back and, oh, I'm going to, whatever. But what are you able to do, or what is within your realm to be able to get more of Congress's interests aligned with American interests versus
Human flourishing requires fossil fuels.
corporations?
Brilliant. Thank you for that question. So I'll say a couple of things. First of all, the real people who make the laws are not the people in Congress. They're the people in the three-letter government agencies in Washington, D.C. I mean this literally. Okay? And
Okay.
the media's going to report this afterwards, and that's fine. I mean this quite literally. I believe that most, that is to say over 50%, of the federal regulations today that have the force of law are unconstitutional. And we will rescind them on day one because they failed the test of West Virginia versus EPA, probably the most important Supreme Court case of our decade.
So here's a guy who is a player. He's almost a billionaire. He's 900 million, worth 900 million. Hedge fund manager, big pharma, player in society. And at some point he was a Democrat. Here, let's watch that here.
Hello, I'm Vivek, and I want to ask you, last week on the show we had Senator Kerry, and this week, and the week before we had Senator Edwards, and my question for you is, of all the Democratic candidates out there, why should I vote for the one with the least political experience?
Well, you shouldn't, because I have the most political experience.
Woo!
That was Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy asking the question there. It was 2000.
So it's on this network. This girl, man, she's just so ghoulish. Marsha Wallace, something like that. Marsha Wallace, I think. Who cares? But she's, in a network full of ghouls, she's a standout. And that was on that loudmouth guy, whatever his name is. They Me Too'd the guy. That's Chris Matthews there. So this is a very liberal show. Chris Matthews, remember, he got a tingle in his leg when he heard Obama speak. And then Vivek Ramaswamy goes on their show, and she's making fun of him, but he was a Democrat. He talked about how Kerry and Edwards were on the show, like he was part of the show, right? He was clearly a Democrat at that time. And, he's questioning Al Sharpton on experience when he's had none personally, which he's going to mock here.
There was 2003. It was on MSNBC. He was then a young student questioning the political experience of our own Rev. Al Sharpton, who was at the time running his own campaign for president. 20 years later, Ramaswamy is facing increased criticism from the other Republican 2024 candidates for his own lack of political experience. And tomorrow, the tables will officially be turned as the Rev. Al will be questioning Vivek Ramaswamy in a live interview on Politics Nation. Rev, what have you got up your sleeve for Vivek Ramaswamy?
I want to know, does he now understand that having political experience does not mean you hold a political office?
So, there's that. But the guy, like Trump was a Democrat, like Trump gave money to the Clintons, they're not even sincere. He's the most insincere person. He's got all these right-wing positions. And, he is a total insider. He says he's going after these three-letter agencies. And yet, maybe he's even an asset for one of them, right? Like, it's just that level of scum. This is this guy, Dax. I saw this. It came up on my feed, and then a few people sent it to me on, messages or whatever. And he did Oliver Anthony's Richmond, north of Richmond. I saw another video from him. I've seen him before. He's like an independent rapper like these other guys. And he did a rap called Black and White with that guy, Tom McDonald, who's a truther. I don't like Tom McDonald's rapping, but he's a truther. And this video, there's a lot of truther stuff in it, just like with Chris Webby. I like the Chris Webby one better. But that's not the point. The point is that there are a lot of these independent rappers who are truthers, and the record labels keep you from being that. And you have this song out. A lot of people have been talking about this song. mostly positively, but then there's always suspicion in the truth community, and I want to address that in a moment. Oliver Anthony. But there's one more thing I want to show you here. Let's move over to the voiceover. I want to get to Trump last. Let's read this thing from, this is they have these messages people send out. I think I did it once on YouTube and forgot how to do it. Probably not that hard. There's never been a time in history when we look back and say the people who were censoring free speech were the good guys. I get that as a, positive statement from RFK Jr. and him being against censorship could benefit all of us, or it might backfire and do the opposite. Who knows? Like, it's just, that's the times we live in. The problem is his endorsement of Israel and the stuff with Palestine reverse that, right? So he is for censorship. So there's that. I want to say one more thing about Vivek Ramaswamy. He was on that MSNBC show, and you could see when he was just giving a speech in a valedictorian, there are people they're going to be famous. Like the people went to school with this guy, like he was a fame ho, right? Like he was going after fame. Like he wanted that. Like he was going to, he just had that kind of energy. And, there are people just like that. And you can just tell people who are around famous people in high school, they we knew that person was going to be famous. Because they just, everything in their system is moving towards fame, but like he didn't care. Like he was on a liberal talk show, a liberal show with Chris Matthews, who was hyper liberal, a Clinton guy. And then he became a Republican, right? Conveniently. But it was just because, like, these are his ambition. Like, he's an ambitious person. That's what's driving him. And he doesn't care about what position he has to take. He's just doing it, right? This is what he's into, right? It's like he just wants to do that, become famous and, be president, whatever, or just be relevant. And there's no substance. And it's a classic politician thing. The thing with Oliver Anthony, again, some people send him messages, they doubt it, or, they think he's owns a lot of land or whatever it is. And, whatever he is, let's say he's a shill. And I don't see that being the case, but whatever. Who's to say? And the song is a part of us, some psyop. People in the truth community are suspicious of everything, and you should be suspicious, but not like paranoid and letting it dominate your existence. Like just, they're not going to get me again. Like you just, you don't want to be like that, right? That guy. But in terms of what's important about the Oliver Anthony thing, is that people from all different demographics are responding to it. And trutherism is emerging in different ways. There's rap videos that have all kinds of truther stuff in it that have been, generated with this song. And it shows you that 60%, I would say 60% of the population is just done. Like I think that there's about 60% of the people are what I would consider, on the truther spectrum. And they just had enough of the system. And that's important because, those are the kind of numbers that scare the powers that be. Not that it's going to be reversed or any of these things which I talked about, but it also makes it go back to the source. You only need 33% for something to reach critical mass. And then it becomes something that is, a thing, a permanent part of the civilization. You can't get rid of it then. It's, critical mass is, it needs 1/3 of the population to make it that it's, it can't be something that's erased. It's just like a permanent part of the social system and the culture until that culture collapses altogether. And so we're seeing those kind of numbers double. We're seeing this upwards past 50%, probably 60% or more. People are just like truthers. And so the thing I want to say about Trump is, like, he just sucks so bad now. And it's not just the Fishboi stuff. Like, he sucks because he got played so bad before. But what Trumpers and all the people supporting Trump have to understand that Trump can't win, and you can't win with Trump. And you can't really win with anybody, but it's going to be worse with Trump. The outside chance that he could be elected, and of course the elections are rigged, and they don't rig against him, and they don't throw him in jail. Like, and they want this guy. I mean, I think they want him to be reelected because he's such a focal point. But, people think that Joe Biden didn't get 80 million votes, don't understand that Trump is such a powerful negative force in the Democratic liberal community. There are people who will not vote other than if Trump runs, vote against Trump. That's the only reason they're voting is because they're freaked out by Trump. They'll be motivated by Trump's presence in the election. They're not in love with Biden or any of the other candidates. These are people who are Bernie Sanders Democrats who may even like RFK Jr. or, these are liberal people or people who just aren't into politics. And they'll turn out to vote because of Trump's presence. And so, and I don't know, voting's rigged. It's all rigged, whatever it is. The whole system's rigged. But, if Trump is, if he wins, he's still not going to win. And I don't think it's capable of him winning. And if it is, they'll manufacture it and they'll rig it for Trump's favor because they want to do more damage with Trump, right? If Trump wins, it's because they want him to win. And if Trump wins, the left will be so, so irate. And this will be more of these, indictment like whatever it is, right? And certainly the second half of his term it'll be a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate. And they will be at war with Trump the entire time. The media will be. And, it'll be all these other things are getting pushed through. It'll be a major distraction. I mean, think how bad the liberal agenda got pushed through under Trump before. There'll be more pandemics or whatever. And so you'll be happy for a moment when Trump wins, and then it'll be much worse for you and everybody else. And so, Biden sucks, and obviously we know what we have with him. And again, these are unless something else is done to promote some one of the other candidates, then this is what you're going to have. And nobody wants to see this again. I mean, the Biden people, there's not that many of them, but there's just anti-Trump people. And the Trump people just are oblivious to everything else. I mean, you're such if you're a Trumper, I mean, it's just such an embarrassment. You're embarrassing the species at this point. He just sucks so frickin' bad. Someone wrote a comment saying, applauding me. I'll see if I find it here. Person says here, I found it. I had to search for it. Person says, shout out to Paul for publicly dissing Trump when he knows a lot of his followers are MAGA. That's called having a spine. The GOP does not have this, and yes, I know Biden sucks too. I don't think about it that way, but yeah, that's true. I'm going to lose some support because there's lots of energy with the Trumpers, and they get pissed at me, and they just won't watch the channel, and that hurts the channel and all these things. But Trump is so obviously bad. It's so bad. I mean, it's, we didn't know before, but after the COVID, it would have been okay. Trump could have had a good second term, but he let him work him on COVID, and then from that point on, he was done. He's trying to reverse these things and make it like there's some sort of change, but there's not because he got played, and he sucked, sucked epically, and it was a bummer for all of us. It's hurt all of us. It's going to hurt you Trumpers even more, and the guy just needs to go away. He can't ever be part of a positive anything anymore. He just needs to disappear. He just shouldn't be a public figure anymore. He is just, whining and going on these rants and, and yeah, I can talk about how bad Biden sucks, but he sucked equally as bad in his own way. And he had a negative effect on everything. And, in terms of the system coming down and me believing that that's necessary in terms of our collective human evolution, that the system has to go down, yeah, there's all that. Then sure, he's part of the solution because he's taking the system down, just like Biden is. But it's just, why do we have to watch this again? It dominates all, everything for the next couple of years. Watching Trump and Biden go at it, two old white guys who suck, go at it. Who wants to watch that? We saw it already. And we know what happens either way. We know the ending of the movie if either one of them wins. We know exactly what's going to happen because we saw it before. And it's just going to be all the stuff that we saw before, but it's going to be more intense and worse and more sucky. And it's really the Trumpers' fault Because if the Trumpers realize Trump suck, which you should be able to do it, you have to be brain dead and in total denial. Like you're the opposite of a truther if you're still supporting Trump. And I don't, none of this, oh, Biden sucks. I don't want to hear that, right? I'm talking about your support for Trump. Again, some of these other candidates could beat Biden. So this isn't about Biden at all. It's about you liking Trump and being fooled by Trump and not being able to see what's right in front of you, the selfish, narcissistic piece of boop that just sucks and just makes everything worse. He's a cancer on humanity. He's a horrible person. And he's, needs to be just disappeared. He should just go. But you guys are like propping him up and you don't have enough support for him to get elected. And if he does get elected, that means it's rigged in his favor. Not in his favor, but in terms of they think he's going to be an asset for them as president because they can roll out more of their agenda. And so this is a lose-lose. And, he's a known entity. He's not going to do anything different. It's just going to be the same stuff but worse. Promises he doesn't keep and work that he can't do and things he can't achieve and them pushing their agenda through and him just sucking and just the whole, he's a bad leader. He's a bad person. He has bad energy. And he's just going to contaminate the planet and this country more and more. And opting in for him again, you're just demonstrating why humanity sucks and should be wiped out. All the people who vote for Joe Biden or Trump are demonstrating everything that's wrong with humanity. I mean, just voting for somebody else, even if they suck, is a positive thing because these two, nightmares of human beings need to be disappeared. Neither one of them, the Democrats running that corpse, propping them up like Weekend at Bernie's, and you guys supporting Trump when you could easily just move to somebody else, anybody else, except for Vivek Ramaswamy, and just throw out a Republican candidate that could be, middle of the road. But, it just all sucks. You don't even have to, why even vote at this point? I mean, if there was a massive, if nobody voted, there was 10% of the population voted, which it should be. It should be around that. It should be a low number. Then it would be all right, the democracy's over. You guys voted by not voting to say democracy has ended because you guys don't believe in it. The system's rigged. Stop participating. But if you went in on somebody like Kennedy who at least verbalizes truth or stuff or, whatever it might be, and then there would be something different at least choose something different. Something that, you don't know how it's going to necessarily work out. But don't pick the guys that exactly. If Vivek Ramaswamy was president, you know exactly what it's going to be like. Because he's a shill and he's going to stab you in the back. He's going to say whatever's convenient. He's going to lie with a smile on his face because he just wants to be president. He doesn't care what they do and what he has to do to get there, what he has to promise and what he has to deliver and how many people he's got to stab in the back and kill or whatever it is. And they're all like that, right? I mean, all these traditional candidates, you can see them. Kennedy's different in one little way, but we all know where he sucks, which I've, covered. So, not voting is at least a positive because you're not endorsing this debacle, right? But to support Trump, it's one of the worst things you can do. And just, how do you look yourself in the mirror and do that? I don't understand. How do you again, I don't know if Biden's so bad. Well, Trump was horrible. Look at all the stuff that happened under Trump and what's still happening under Trump. It just, it's sucking. It's a dynamic you're just trying to get out of. Break the dynamic. And by getting rid of Trump, you kill MSNBC and CNN. Their whole business plan surrounds Trump. So you destroy that media because no one watches it then. It'll be half of the viewership there. And then they already have shitty, crappy viewership. And so, boop. And so, you could end it right now. You could end all that stuff by just withdrawing your support for Trump. But you won't do that. They won't do it, the Trumpers. They're just that idiotic. Marjorie Taylor Greene type people. And it just shows you have no gripes as right-wing people. Because if you're willing to vote for Trump, you can't complain about Biden. Because they're the same guy. They have the same, negative energy, the same negative type personalities. And anything's better than that. Anything's better than, this isn't like a Rocky movie where he's fighting Apollo Creed for the 5th time or whatever it is, right? This is, this is the same. And those movies are the same, right? Rocky movies are all the same. This is the sequel to an unpleasant event that we lived through before. And it's going to turn out exactly like it did before either way. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paravato, definitely born for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.